recording will be begin that now. It's really a great opportunity for you guys to learn a little bit more about SGAC globally, what the Space Generation Congress is, ask all the questions you might have about the application process. So thank you very much for taking time out of your weekend to be here. And now to formally kick off, and also, of course, thank you to the mentorship program team for partnering with the SGC team to make this happen. I'm gonna pass it off to Shayna, who's the deputy manager working with me managing the event for this year, and she's gonna talk a little bit about what SGAC is.
Hi everyone, my name is Shayna Hume. So like I said, like Victoria said just a moment ago, we'll kick off just by describing SGAC for anyone who's particularly new to the organization before we move on to describing the Space Generation Congress itself. Next slide, please. We'll start with this video. So I think we were unfortunately missing the fun background music there, but we didn't miss any of the information on it. So to begin, SGAC is a program in support of the United Nations Program on Space Applications, is a non-government, nonprofit organization, and represents students and young professionals worldwide. We have over 165 countries now and over 20,000 members from around the world. And many of these members regularly go to our 3 flagship events: SGX in DC, the Space Generation Fusion Forum in Colorado Springs, and the Space Generation Congress, which changes location every year and which we are here today to talk about. Next slide, please. So I'll pass it back to Victoria for a little description about what the Congress is.
Yeah, so the Space Generation Congress is really SGAC's flagship event. It's the largest event that SGAC hosts year on year. It happens right before the International Astronautical Congress, which this year is coming to Paris in France, which is where I'm currently based, and we're all very excited to be welcoming the international space community to join us. So SGC itself is 3 days long. It hosts around 150 delegates, so 150 of you joining together from over 50 countries in a very high intensity, high-paced, fast-paced event where you get opportunities to really do professional development, engage in networking opportunities. There will be working groups that focus on this, like 8 working groups focused on key issues in the space sector that you get to address with experts from right across the globe. And in addition to that, SGAC offers around 75 scholarships for this event. The event will be held from the 14th to the 16th of September this year in Paris. Applications are already open. We will share, of course, the links in the chat. So maybe we can move forward to the next slide, please. So every year we try to choose a theme for our Congress. This being the 20th SGC Space Generation Congress, we want to focus on diversity, access, and inclusion as the theme for SGC 2022. And the focus of that is really to celebrate the rich and vibrant SGAC community that we have here, and as well as the breadth of opportunity that exists in the space sector. What does this mean? That we really want to embrace all aspects of the plurality of nationalities that we have as part of SGAC, the plurality of backgrounds that we all come from, be that from academic backgrounds or just life experience. And as part of that, we're having this webinar today with the mentorship program because we really want to encourage a breadth of inclusion in terms of folks who maybe have very limited experience with SGAC and folks who have been around, for several space generation congresses. So by opening up the rubric of what the application process is going to look like this year, we hope we can make it as transparent as possible and as accessible as possible to all of you in the SGAC community. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the next slide. I really want to thank once again the mentorship program for working together with us on this, and pass it over to Anne-May from our delegates team, who's going to talk more about the details of the application process.
Yes, hi everyone. So good to see so many of you here, and I hope you can see me and hear me properly. So I'm Anne-May. I'm one of the delegates team members. We're with a group of 5 of us, and we're going to be managing the application process and the registration after you've been accepted as delegate, hopefully. So first of all, leading off from what Victoria's already told you about the Congress, we want to give you an insight on what the Congress ticket will include, and we hope this will motivate you to apply as well. So when you are accepted as delegate, and you have the opportunity to buy your ticket, and that will include the delegate welcome pack. There will be a lot of sponsors and sponsor subject matter experts who will be part of the working groups and giving keynote presentations and panels. So you will have the opportunity to speak to them as well. There's catering on site. We'll be hosting an international night, a space night, and a closing dinner. So all these fun activities in the evenings besides the day program as well. There's of course free Wi-Fi at the venue. Other speakers, staff, and materials that you may need for the Congress will be included as well. And of course, you'll gain exposure to a lot of different space topics and challenges, and a lot of world-leading space organizations that will be present at the event too. Yeah, and to add on to the tickets, there's obviously also scholarship opportunities to help you fund your ticket. You can have a look at the general scholarships website of the SGAC, which is where also the SGC scholarships are linked, and we'll soon be adding a link on the SGC website as well. And if you keep an eye on the SGAC social media, that's where the scholarship opportunities are promoted as well, so you can find more information for the different types that are available, mainly online, or you can ask about them later on during the Q&A. So to give you an overview of the application process, after you've applied and after the closing date of the applications, which will close on Sunday, May 29th at midnight GMT, so just make sure to translate that into your own time zone where needed. After that, the applications will be reviewed by 2 members of our team, the SGC team and the SGAC team as well, using a double-blind peer review process. And this means that both the identity of the applicant and the reviewer is anonymized and unknown to both parties. So that will give you, each application is reviewed by 2 persons independently. So after the review process, which we'll go into more in a bit, the acceptances and the non-acceptances to be a delegate will be sent out starting June 20th. So from that date onwards, we'll be sending you the results basically of your application. So you know if you can buy your ticket or if you're on the wait list, because we also work with the waitlist system. And along the process of applying or afterwards, you can always contact us at our email on the slide here to ask us any questions or tips or concerns you may have about the application process, and we can guide you through that a bit more in detail as well. So make sure to note that down or find that online on our website too. And the application process consists of 5 questions, of which 1 is optional. So there's only 4 mandatory questions, which we'll head into depth in the rest of this presentation. And in your application, we would like to get to know more about you yourself, your motivation to attend the Congress, your interest in space, and your perspectives on this year's theme of diversity, access, and inclusion. So to give you an overview of the different elements that we are looking for in actually each of the questions, these are the topics of each question. And we're working with a system of points to be scored on each section and each question. And we have a very extensive rubric that all the reviewers will be working with to make sure that all the applications are reviewed based on the same rubric and on the same, what we're looking for. So today we'll give you an insight about what we're looking for to score on these points and to make sure that your application ends up high on our list so that we know that you're a good applicant. So don't worry about all the information on the side. I'll go into more depth in the next slides, but the topics that we will be looking at are motivation, your depth and breadth of experience, your teamwork skills, your insights for the theme Space for All and the industry, space industry, and the overall quality of your application. So now we can go into the questions a bit more in depth. As you start your application, as you go through the application questions, you'll see them on the form, which we'll link later down as well. So the first question that you will be asked is based on your motivation. And we want to hear your own ideas on how space could contribute to a more diverse, inclusive, and egalitarian society, and vice versa. And please describe your motivation for participating in the 20th SGC. And for each question, we give a note on how many words you can use. So for this question, that will be 250 words for all questions, actually. And in this question, we mainly want to look at, we want you to show your desire to further your academic or professional career, because we understand there will be students, there will be young professionals, you might be in different stages of your career. So how, what's your motivation at this stage of your career to get more involved in the space industry? And we want you to address this year's theme of diversity, access, and inclusion in your own way. So what does this mean to you? How would you define this? How would you link this to your motivation for joining the Congress? So it's important to address that and have a think about what that means to you. The next question that you'll come across is about your experience. So we want you to illustrate your relevant experiences, whether these are your academic experience, your professional experience, or your volunteer and extracurricular experiences, and what skills you've gained from these experiences. And we want you to show how you can use these experiences and skills that you have, and how you can contribute these to the diverse and productive conversations during the SGC, because the Congress is largely based on working groups, and you'll be meeting a lot of different people, and we want it to be a very diverse group of people that'll be joining us. So we want to look for your different experiences that you have and how you can contribute these to the group discussions and the people that you'll be meeting during the Congress. And to head more in depth into the working groups, so in the Congress, you'll have a chance to join the different working groups. Everyone will be part of one. And in that working group, you'll be discussing a certain topic with certain subject matter experts that will be guiding that, and different people that are interested in that specific topic. So you'll be collaborating with a lot of different people in your working groups. So we want to get to know about your teamwork skills and how this will be useful for these groups. So we want you to describe a situation in which you utilized your teamwork or intercultural or multicultural skills to solve a problem. And we want you to reflect on what you learned from this. So we're looking for your ability to work in international teams and in international group settings. And we want you to explain which teamwork skills you use to actually solve a problem. So we want you to describe the situation, show how you solved a problem, and then we want you to reflect on what you learned from this. And it sounds like a lot for 250 words, but if you take one situation and if you go into that, that should be doable. And the focus here is definitely on the international teamwork of the working group. So if you can use an example which relates to that, that would be what we are looking for. And the last mandatory question is your insights for the space industry and the theme of Space for All, which is actually the theme of this year's IAC, which will be happening after the Congress, but which is related to our own theme of diversity. And as the question states, we are looking for a variety of interests, backgrounds, and experiences of the delegates that will be taking part in the Congress. So in this question, we really want you to elaborate on something that makes you unique, that can help us achieve Space for All and the topic of diversity. And we want you to mention something that you haven't explained in the question about your experiences or your teamwork or your motivation. So if you can try and find something that makes you unique and show how that can contribute to the SGC and in your own way. And in this question, we're also looking for how you want to give back to the space community, because obviously you'll be gaining a lot from participating in the Congress, but we also want to find out what your motivation is to become part of the space community and to give back to the community as well. And throughout the application, but especially in this question, we also want you to show your dedication and your enthusiasm. And even if you're new to the space industry and the space sector, there's still a lot of dedication and enthusiasm that you can show, of course. So that's a good question to add on to all the other questions that you've seen before. And then the last element of the application, which is the overall quality of your application. So this also includes an optional question. And if you like, you can link any multimedia, like a blog or an Instagram page where you do something related to space or not necessarily related to space. So you can link that there, but obviously that's an optional question. So that will only give you a potential bonus point, or like it will be considered in your application. But if you don't submit anything, that would be fine as well. So the overall quality of your application, besides this creativity element, is that we are looking for a professional and enthusiastic tone. We want you to use full sentences and elaborate on the paragraph structure and the 250 words that you have for each question. Make sure to proofread your application. I would recommend you to write it in a separate document so that you can check the word count for each question, and that you can make sure that you're happy with it, read it through like a day later as well, and keep an eye on like a clear and easy to read structure in your answers. And besides that, it's good to use concrete and concise examples where relevant. So look at the questions and what would be relevant using the tips that we've given you on these slides as well. And put an effort into your answers always helps. And like I mentioned, if you do it in a separate Word document before starting the actual application, you have some time to proofread it and go back and change it a few times where needed. So I think that should give you a good overview of the different mandatory and the one optional question that we have for the application. If there's anyone that has questions, or this would be a moment, I think we're ahead on schedule, so I can also go back and address some of the questions in more depth if needed, because maybe I went through it a bit fast. I'll at least go back to the overview slide, because this gives a good overview of all the questions as well.
We can answer questions about the general application, about specific questions, any of the above. So if you have any of them, definitely drop them in the chat. Okay, the first question from Laura. What are some other good examples of what to upload in the multimedia option? I think that's a great one. I know when I was first a delegate to SGC, I didn't know what to put there.
I think for this one, this really depends on yourself. So is that anything that a project that you're working on, or I guess you could even share your LinkedIn page, but that's not as creative as that we might be looking for. So if you have like I mentioned, a blog or a YouTube channel, or if you do anything related to arts that you might want to share. So it's really personal about anything that you feel could be related to space or the Congress, or to show your own creativity or your enthusiasm. Some people have podcasts or those kinds of things. So feel free to do whatever you like. But as we also mentioned, if you don't have anything, that's not a problem either.
Yeah, to add on that, I think this is a question that, I'm not a very artistic person, so I've always had to brainstorm a little bit more creatively for what to put. If you have a personal website, that's a good one. Anime, I mentioned podcasts. If you were on an episode of a podcast, I think that's enough, just to show some of your interactions. So any of your traceable interactions or your work, anything that you've loved working on would be good there.
Yeah, I think it's important also to highlight that this is really just like an additional one, like I wouldn't put or overemphasize or stress too much this particular item. If you do have something, then great. If you don't consider it a negative, is what we would say. It's just us opening up an opportunity for folks that might have a bit more of a, I don't know, artistic inclination one way or another, to be able to have a platform where they can showcase a little something that might highlight a different angle or to what they're doing day to day.
Thank you for those ideas as well. I also see another question in my own little chat. Somebody that's already submitted their application and asks if there's any opportunity to change it. I don't think there is. I think once you've submitted your application, it's gone, but we do accept if you resubmit an application, we will always take the latest version of an application. So if you ever feel along the way that you want to go back and change something, obviously you have until the end of May to work on an application, so you don't have to submit it. It's not first come, first serve based at all. So take your time to finish an application, but if you want to go back and change something, you will have to resubmit a new application, and then we'll just take the latest version that you submitted. And another question is how competitive the applications are. That actually really depends on how many applications we get each year, and yeah, it's hard to say something about that now because we don't know how many we'll be getting. But given these tips, you should be able to make a really strong application, and then you have a good chance of getting in, of course. Another question is examples on how to address the diversity theme. I think I've already mentioned that should be really up to you as well. Like, what do you feel diversity in the space sector is? What do you feel how space could contribute to a diverse society? For some of those questions, in the other question about your own uniqueness, that could be related sort of to diversity as well. Like, what makes you unique, and how can you contribute to the diversity of the Congress? So again, that's a question that we can either go into more depth, or it's more personal about your own ideas of what that entails. So definitely I would suggest reading up on current space issues and thinking about how you can contribute to that, or what role diversity plays in those kinds of challenges that we have right now. There's another question about attending both the SGC and the IAC. Is there any specific applications for that? Victoria can help with that. I think there's specific scholarships that can help you go to both, but we don't do anything related to applications for the IAC.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Anne-May, for going through the entire rubric. It's fantastic. There are several scholarships, like we mentioned, around 50% of attendees receive direct scholarships through SGAC partnerships, and we will have a dedicated tab on our website for the SGC 2022. Again, the slides will be available after this webinar on our website, and also this entire session. But on that website, you'll be able to access the opportunities as they open up. And typically each application has its own process depending on what is on offer. Currently, for example, the SGAC OHB partnership scholarship is open. There is also a Space for Business competition scholarship, which is open, where you have to write a sort of essay related to space economics, space business. So these scholarships have different themes. For example, for the logo, the beautiful logo that we have this year was designed through a logo competition, and the winner of that will be attending the SGC, and also might have some costs covered towards IAC. So it really depends scholarship to scholarship what is exactly offered. Minimum is SGC attendance typically, but many do cover IAC as well. So keep your eyes out for that. And even beyond SGAC, there are other sources of scholarships. For example, check out the Secure World Foundation. They are offering a scholarship to attend the IAC per se. So that can help support some of your costs if you're considering both events, for example.
And to add on to that, I think if you're still a student, you can also check with your universities, and that may be very regional, but some universities offer special funds or grants for students that want to attend conferences related to their studies or not per se. So maybe check with your own university, or if you're a young professional, check with your own employer if they have any opportunities to help you on your way to the SGC and or IAC. Are there any other questions related to any of the application questions or the process of reviewing them or anything else?
Another question, what things do you look for when considering applications for moderators? I don't think we've talked too much about moderators, so that might be a good thing to highlight. What is a moderator? What does it mean when someone applies for a moderator? And what are you looking for?
Yeah, excellent question. So moderators are in charge of supporting conversations within our working groups. We will have 8 working groups during SGC on different topics and themes of interest, that of relevance at this moment in time in the space sector. And the moderator is really in charge of supporting the sponsors and experts in helping conduct the conversation amongst all the delegates, around 20 people per working group, in a kind of constructive way over the 3 days, and also supporting the write-up of the final report about what has been discussed and established during the working group. So what we look for in moderators is really maybe young professionals and students with a little bit more of experience in this kind of setting, in managing conversations, like in workshop style conversations, in delivering kind of like a final report. If you have had any experience within SGAC related to that, or through an SGC or SGFF or any of the other events or local regional events, that's really welcome. If you've been involved in that kind of activity through your university, through work, I don't know, in an industry alliance consortium, anything like that, we would love to hear about it. And that really helps make a compelling case for a moderator. Moderators, because of the kind of support that they're giving to the event, do get a small discount. You can check more of those details on the SGC 2022 website. It's all outlined there. Yeah, I think that's more or less it on that point. I think we have some other questions too. I think I saw some questions on this Space Generation Leadership Award. So for the Space Generation Leadership Award, that's really a specific award, a scholarship that really rewards folks that have given and contributed extensively to SGAC through volunteering. So if you've been part of volunteering for organizing an event, a part of a project group, a part of the mentorship program, a part of all the different activities that we do as part of SGAC, the more extensive your contribution to SGAC through your volunteering hours and contribution to the overall community, then the higher your probability of making a successful application there, because it's really to reward folks who have given a lot of time to SGAC as an organization.
Thank you, Victoria, for addressing those questions. Are there any other questions related to the delegate application questions or scholarship or anything else? There's a question on, I think this was related to the leading the space leaders scholarship, but I don't think we've heard feedback on that either, do we?
Yeah, it's important to make a distinction, as Shana very well explained in the chat. The Emerging Space Leaders Award is run by the IAF and is part of the IAC program. And so it's not something that we work on as part of the SGC Congress. And I also have seen a question about whether we give direct feedback on scores of applications. That's not really the purpose. We do, as Anne-May explained, a double-blind process. So we don't, when at the moment of marking applications, we don't see who the individual who has applied is. We just we want to remove the bias as much as possible, and so that's how we choose to proceed. Yeah.
Another great question in the chat: what happens if someone receives one of these scholarships but isn't accepted as a delegate? Could that happen?
That is not a scenario that is possible to happen, because scholarships are granted. We have some slots reserved for certain scholarships, and also yeah, this is not an issue you will encounter, basically. And just to highlight, you mentioned feedback for applications. This is something that Faith will explain a little bit later, but as a follow-on from this week, which is more about just giving you information, next week we will be doing one-on-one workshops, 10 minutes per person attending the session next week, where you can get direct feedback before you submit your application. I think it's, that way we can make it relevant and timely. So next week, if you have the availability to do so, we'll give more details later. We will have an event workshop whereby you can get directed feedback before you submit your application. Again, we will be providing all this information at the end of the webinar, and also it will be posted on the website. So we will do that. But thank you for the question there.
And again, to link into the question that was posted earlier as well, if you've already submitted your application and you're hearing all this information now, and you might want to join the next workshop next week to get more feedback, feel free to resubmit a new application. We'll just make sure to take out the earlier version. So it's not, for the people here that have already submitted your application, don't worry, you still have another chance to improve on that as well. Hopefully you saved your answers somewhere so you can improve them. Are there any other questions, or will we move on? We can also go back to the next Q&A part later on if someone has questions later on. If anyone wants to put it in the chat, or
I think we're out of questions for the time being.
Yeah.
We can move forward onto the next section.
I'll just skip through the slides. But yeah, one final part then on how to apply for those of you that haven't applied yet. If you scan this QR code, you'll be linked to the application form, so you have that ready. An important point is that you have to be a member of the SGAC. It's free to register and free to be a member as well, so you can register before you start your application, and then you log in, and then you can fill in the SGAC application form. You can always find it back on our SGC website, and make sure to submit it at the end. So that's all there is to the part about the delegate application, and we can now go on to the mentoring program.
Thanks, Annie. Okay, so just to share this opportunity, every year we organize 2 mentoring sessions to connect mentors and mentees in the space industry. And mentees typically join to gain personalized guidance and advice for their space careers. And it's also an opportunity for mentors to give feedback to the community, to give back to the community and deepen their leadership skills. Our next run starts in fall. Our spring run was just over, and you can register your interest in the link below. I'm going to put it in the Zoom chat. Yeah, next please. Sarah, can we go to the next slide? And as Victoria has mentioned, we will be organizing a workshop to help with the review of the SGC applications. And you will get to have the opportunity to have one-on-one time with mentors to ask questions about your application and resume. And also the scholarship team will be talking about how to submit a winning application as well as the breakdown. But the slots are limited, so please register early using the link shown on screen. I'll also put that quickly in the Zoom chat.
So a question that someone might want to ask for this is if they want to go to the workshop next weekend, and if they register for this workshop, do they need to bring anything to it? Do they need to prepare any materials ahead of time?
Yeah, sorry, Victoria.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Faith.
You would have to prepare your resume, obviously, as well as all the questions you want to ask beforehand, because you only have 10 minutes per slot. Yep. And Victoria, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say, you have a 10-minute slot. If you want to maximize the potential of that interaction, then, come ready to ask specific questions about doubts that you might have. If there's a particular section of the application process you want specific support with, come ready, come prepared, know exactly what you want to get out of those 10 minutes, right? That's what I would recommend.
And who will be there to do those 10-minute sessions with the people coming in, the mentees?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really great question, Shayna. And so we are getting a bunch of folks who are very experienced within SGAC, who've maybe attended multiple space generation congresses, folks who are maybe in a more developed point in their career, but still active members of SGAC, who will be able to come on board and read through your application, give you a couple of pointers. And I hope this will be really a fruitful exercise for everyone who wants to be a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and to answer the most recent question that I just saw in the chat, do I need to submit an application before the workshop or afterwards? You do not need to submit it ahead of time. If you do and you submit a second one, we will basically just ignore and delete your first one. If you accidentally or on purpose submit multiple applications, the last one is the only one that counts in this case, because we understand that some people want to change something after a webinar or a workshop like this. So no, you do not need to submit your application ahead of the workshop. In fact, if you're going to the workshop, it's probably encouraged not to, since you're most likely going to change something anyways. Another question, looking at mentee application, are you required to post answers for all of the questions of the actual SGC application, or can you bring a fresh one to the workshop? I'm not sure I totally understand that question. Could you clarify, Jonathan? Are you saying if you submit your answers to the SGC application, are those the ones that we can work on in the workshop? Or are you like asking if you can bring something fresh that you didn't submit in the mentee application? I'm not sure we quite follow. Yes, you can definitely bring something fresh. If you submitted something from the old application, that's fine. But if you actually bring something fresh that you want to work on, just have it saved, have it ready on your computer. Ideally, before the 10 minutes start, have everything up and ready so that you can ask questions about it right away. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just want to add to that. So ideally, the application form for being a mentee, it should be very light and straightforward. I think, the core of it is just prompting your motivation to be a mentee, right, Faith? You can speak to that a bit more. But I think that we will have enough room to cater to most people who would like to attend that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, this question is for the mentoring program mentees, right?
No, this is actually for the workshop next weekend. They just wanted to make sure that if they wrote something between applying for the workshop and attending the workshop, that anything fresh could actually be reviewed. And the answer to that is definitely yes. If you have anything now, submit it. If not, don't worry. Another question, what's the link for the one-on-one workshop? That's a good question. So what is the registration process again, Faith? Could you go through the steps?
So we do not have the Eventbrite link up yet, so you can register your interest as a mentee on the slide shown on the screen. So that's the bit.ly link with the SGAC mentee. So once you register for that, we'll send you an email to follow up.
Okay, perfect. So if you register your interest on the bit.ly website that we have shown on this slide, then as soon as the Eventbrite is open, you will be sent that and you can register.
Just another question in the chat about giving more information about becoming a mentor and how much SGC experience you need. Okay, honestly, you don't have to be a super SGC veteran to be a mentor. What we're really looking for is someone who has had experience with applications, who wants to also help out others and in the application process, and that you feel that your experience overall puts you in a position where you're able to do that. So any experience within SGAC or out, having looked at what the application looks like as well, how you think you can meet the position of being a mentor is kind of what we're trying to understand. I don't know if that answers your question fully. Happy to elaborate more. But yeah, no specific. If you've been a delegate attendee of any SGAC events, that's also super helpful. But we're really open and wanna see people with increased experience within SGAC supporting newcomers specifically. That's more or less. And just to add, yeah, so the way we're going to do the workshop, it's one-on-one feedback, because we want to make sure that everyone has like a dedicated space where they're not getting or listening into answers or whatever application someone else has prepared. So in order to do that, we are then having to stick to about 10-minute slots where you get that one-on-one interaction, so that we can if we have quite a significant attendance, that we can make sure that everyone has the opportunity to benefit from the experience.
Perfect. So another question I think that's being clarified in the chat is, are you signing up for the workshop as a whole, or are you signing up for a 10-minute slot? Someone was wondering if they have to sign up for the 10 minutes ahead of time, and what happens in the workshop if you are waiting on your 10-minute slot. Basically, when do you know when to log in? That's a good question.
Faith, do you have any more details on that, or Megha?
Yeah, I can help with this one. So what the workshop will include will be that the scholarship team will be present with us that day to run us through what a winning application looks like. So we welcome you all to be present throughout the 1 hour for which the workshop lasts. You will all be given 10-minute time slots ahead of time. So say your time slot starts at 10 a.m. Well, before that slot starts, you will be in the main room with the scholarship team, and after those 10 minutes, we'll send you to a breakout room with your respective mentor for 10 minutes maximum, where you can talk and get maybe certain answers to whatever is confusing you, and then you can return back to the main workshop to hear more about the scholarship team, and we will be having another Q&A with the scholarship team, in particular dedicated to answering questions you might have about the requirements for the scholarships that are open or which might open. And we will also have members from the SGC team with us in case you're still not sure about certain steps of the application. So of course, we welcome you to be present throughout the workshop, but your slot will, for reviewing your application, will just be for 10 minutes, and it will be happening in a separate breakout room. I hope that clarifies the question.
Okay, so any final questions? Because otherwise I think we're set at a position where we might be getting to wrap up. So just to go over this, a couple of the social media that you can follow. So on Twitter at SGAC, on Instagram you have Space Generation. Check those two out. Also LinkedIn and Facebook, if you want to keep in the loop as to what scholarships available, when they're opening, where they're closing, the applications, deadlines. All of that is on our social media, and of course the SGAC website, which we shared before. And again, there's one final slide that we would like to share. It's just, again, a huge thank you to everyone for coming on board today. I know it's a part of your weekend, so really appreciate it for your. It's great for us to see your enthusiasm for this upcoming event. Huge thank you to the mentorship program for making this possible as a one-of-a-kind kickoff that we're a new tradition we're hoping to start within SGAC. So we're very excited about that. If you have any further questions, anything that hasn't been touched upon today, or you're following this from just the recording, there's an email here, sgc-delegates-team@spacegeneration.org, where the Space Generation Congress team, delegates team will be happy to answer any of your questions. Yes, we will be posting the recording of this webinar on the SGC 2022 website, along with the slides as well. And we have an extract of the attendees, so we might be able to follow up with you directly as well. So thank you very much to everyone for making this possible today. I will now stop the recording. And